Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Viper Strike 95, and welcome back to our Sunday National Park Series, part 39 of Fit 63. And today we're here in North Dakota. Here today, we're just outside of Bismarck, the state capital of North Dakota, and today we're going to be covering the only U.S. national park to be named after a single person, Theodore Roosevelt National Park in western North Dakota. So that's where we're going to be here today. We're basically right near the middle of the state. So that is where we're going to do here today, and we're going to be exploring around this beautiful national park. So I hope you're all having a good weekend so far, and your all's weekend has been great. So before we get started, I do want to say hello to everyone, the lurkers and mods. I hope you're all having a good morning, you too as well. So today we're here going to check out the national park. So here's our nav map for today. Hey, Super Typhon, good to see you. So we'll start in Bismarck. We'll have a short flight through the state capital of North Dakota, and make our way to our first stop at Frederick's Ranch Airport, 44 November Delta. We'll land there in Frederick's Ranch. Then from there, we'll head out west. We're going to go ahead and make our way to the Dakota Prairie Grasslands. And we'll make our way down through here. We'll make a bushland stop at Elkhorn Ranch. And we'll talk about Elkhorn Ranch, where the famous ranch that he lived in, where Teddy Roosevelt lived in, was Elkhorn Ranch. There's also Buckthorn Ranch as well, and we'll make our way down through here. And we'll fly around the national park, the Petrel 44 Loop, Wind Canyon Trail, and we'll fly through all of this area here. Then we'll reach into the town of Medora. We'll check out some of the different places. Teddy Roosevelt National Library, the Medora Campground, and we'll take a look at Medora for a bit. I think we can find his famous Maltese Cross Ranch. Here's his Maltese Cross cabin. There. Then from there, we'll continue on west. We'll go to the Badlands Overlook. We'll probably make a landing around this area here, if you guys want to. And then we'll fly across the rest of the park through the Boycott Overlook. And we'll walk into the Painted Canyon. And then we'll make our landing here at Logging Camp Ranch 1 November Alpha 4. So it's going to be quite a bit of flying to do today. So, but it should be some very nice Badlands, similar, but it's definitely a very unique park and a very unique area. So we got this Slim Savage Morton here for today. So we're gonna go ahead and turn her on. So we're gonna go ahead and turn everything on. So there we go. Map. Our first lake altitude for this one is going to be technically our max altitude for this entire trip is 4,000 feet. So we don't have to go super high elevations, but for this leg, we're going to go, the safe altitude is 3,500. So we're going to go ahead and taxi to our runway. So we're in Bismarck here. So if you guys don't know about Bismarck, South Dakota, Bismarck, North Dakota is the state capital of North Dakota. Population 73,000 people. It's the second most populous city in all of North Dakota, trailing only by the U.S. city of Fargo. Founded in 1872 on the east bank of the Missouri River, and has been North Dakota's capital since 1889. It's the economic center of South Central Dakota, North Dakota, and North Central South Dakota. In 2014, it was ranked the 7th fastest growing small city in the United States. Some of the main things about Bismarck, of course. We do have a Bismarck Airport, the largest passenger volume in western North Dakota, and North Dakota's second busiest airport after Fargo. This airport mainly flies into destinations in Minneapolis, Chicago, Dallas, Denver, Las Vegas, and Phoenix Mesa are its main airports it flies to across the country. And there's several notable people from Bismarck. They include the former the 10th governor of North Dakota, John Burke. We have former Bismarck Mayor Thomas S. Klepp. And, of course, professional quarterback Carson Wentz of the Kansas City Chiefs. So here we go, guys. We're going to get ready to get flying. So here we go, guys. So here we go. We're about to be in Bismarck. So here we go. Now we're heading back. We're now heading to Bismarck. So here is the state capital of North Dakota. I hope you're all having a good week. So this is Bismarck, downtown Bismarck. There's the Cathedral of Holy Spirit. So this is downtown. So here it is, downtown Bismarck. Or Dakota. So, Bismarck is where we're going to be heading to today. So, we're going to be heading off to Bismarck. So, we're going to talk about Theodore Roosevelt National Park. So, let's go ahead and cover that as we head our way over to the national park. This first leg is 76 nautical miles. So, the river we see here in front of us is the mighty Missouri. And the mighty Missouri is one of America's longest running rivers. So, here is the banks of the Missouri River here in North Dakota. So let's go ahead and talk about Theodore Roosevelt National Park. The only national park named after a single person. It's located in the Badlands of western North Dakota, comprised of 3 geologically separated areas. This national park is the only one to be named after a single person, and that person so happens to be Theodore Roosevelt. And this pays homage to the time that he spent in this surrounding area in the Dakota Territories before they were states. And he lived in this area and died hours apart on February 14th, 1884. And the park covers 70,000 acres of land in 3 sections: the North Unit, South Unit, and Elkhorn Ranch. Both main units have scenic drives, approximately 100 miles of foot and horse trails, wildlife viewing, and backcountry hiking and camping. In 2021, received 850,000 visitors. As of 2025, Teddy Roosevelt, last year in 2025, it received 729,000 people visiting the park last year. And it was established pretty recently, though, 47 years ago. Some really cool stuff about the park. Now, the history of this park is pretty fascinating, too. Now, Roosevelt came in this area to hunt bison back in 1883, and during that short trip, he got his bison, and he fell in love with the rugged lifestyle and perfect freedom of the West. And he invested $14,000 into the Maltese Cross Ranch, which was already being managed by Sylvan Harris and Bill Merrifield, 7 miles south of Medora. That winter, Harris and Merrifield built the famous Maltese Cross Cabin, which we'll also be visiting too. After the death of his wife and mother, Roosevelt returned back into his North Dakota ranch seeking solitude and time to heal. And that summer, he started his second ranch, Elkhorn, just 35 miles north of Medora, which he hired 2 Maine woodsmen, Ball Sewell and Wilmot Doe, to operate. And he took great interest in his ranches and hunting in the West, detailing his experiences in peace. It published in Eastern newspapers and magazines. And he wrote 3 major works. Ranch life in the hunting trail. Hunting dreams of a ranchman in the wilderness hunter, and his adventures in a strange life outdoors and the loss of cattle were influential in his pursuit of conservation policies when he became president of the United States from 1901 to 1909. Very important guy for that. Of course, after his death in 1919, the Little Missouri Badlands were explored for possible park sites, with civilian conservation corps established in both park units from 1934 to 1941, and developed roads and other structures used today. Then in 1946, it was transferred to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as Theodore Roosevelt National Wildlife Refuge. Then it became a national memorial park in 1947, and then it became a national park in November 10th, 1978, with 29,000 acres. It was changed to Theodore Roosevelt National Park. So yeah, pretty interesting history with Teddy Roosevelt. Now, about the man himself, and I'm going to give you a bit of background about Teddy Roosevelt himself, because I think the man himself is a very interesting individual, one of the more interesting Americans to learn. Teddy Roosevelt himself was born on October 27th, 1858, in New York City. His family, of course, have had a long history, of course. He was actually a pretty sickly child with asthma. He had to deal with debilitating asthma, which, of course, back in the old days, there wasn't like respirators and all that. So he had to deal with asthma without it. So he overcame it with vigorous exercise, which he called the strenuous life. And he was also homeschooled a lot. He was homeschooled. He was pretty solid in geography, and bright in history, French, and German. However, struggled in math. And he became then part of university, and he became an ornithologist and a naturalist himself, as well as being part of rowing and boxing and stuff. Then he became part of law school, and he became a very well-known politician. He was a assemblyman in New York. But of course, after what happened with his family, he became then a cattle rancher in North Dakota, and that began his long history with nature and conservation. But of course, then he re-entered public life back in New York, including police commissioner. Then he became the assistant secretary of the Navy. And of course, Teddy Roosevelt had a long involvement with the Spanish-American War. He was part of Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders, the U.S. Volunteer Cavalry in the Spanish-American War, and he was part of the Rough Riders. And he actually even invaded. He was led to several charges, including most famously Kettle Hill and San Juan Hill, and he was the only soldier on horseback. And he was forced to walk up to the hills in San Juan Heights. And his victories, and he was a big part of and his legend of the Spanish-American War helped him gain a lot of popularity in politics. First becoming the governor of New York, then becoming the vice president, and then once William McKinley was shot and became assassinated, he then became the president at just 42 years old, which actually unbelievably makes Teddy Roosevelt the youngest person to ever hold office of president in U.S. history. Yeah, he's the youngest. And of course, people want to know what he has done. Roosevelt, during his time in presidency, was a very big deal in U.S. presidency. Domestically, he had the Square Deal, which was a big part, which has conservation of natural resources, control corporations, and consumer protection. And he got a lot involved with the trust busting with the Sherman Antitrust Act compared to his predecessors. He's much more aggressive with that. He did with a lot of railroad stuff in the Pure Food and Drug Act. And then he was a big part of the conservation and stuff, and he helped build the groundwork for what is now the National Park Service, including protection. He signed the U.S. Forest Service. He established the Forest Service, created 5 national parks, signed the 1906 Antiquity Acts, which produced 18 new national monuments, and established lots of bird reserves, game preserves, and national forests. He was very big on the conservation part. And that was just domestically, of course. He also had a pretty important foreign policy, mainly with the Monroe Doctrine, and he was very much actively involved in Latin America as well. Carry a big stick, of course, was his famous thing, the real big stick. So, but yeah, Teddy Roosevelt, a man with a lot of history, of course. The post-presidency, he even tried running once again as part of the Moose Party, a third party at one point, but then he passed away on 1919 after breathing problems, of course. And he passed away at 60 years old. And of course, Teddy Roosevelt's legacy is absolutely massive in American history. But yeah, this is just a briefer of what the man Teddy Roosevelt is. I think he's a very interesting guy to learn about. And his legacy is pretty huge, to say the least. So that covers a bit about the history of Teddy Roosevelt National Park and about the man himself, since he is the namesake of the national park, mind you. So let's take a look outside of the scenery, of course. So let's take a look outside and see how things are looking. Look at that! Look at that for a sunrise. This is pretty. The beautiful North Dakota grasslands, of course, of North Dakota. Absolutely beautiful today. So I hope you guys have had a good weekend so far and enjoying yourselves. Yesterday, I was watching a few sports matches, of course. Yesterday, I got to watch my club's last friendly. It was a loss to Coventry City, of course. There were a couple other games on, mainly in Brazil. Grêmio beat Sao Paulo, and Coritiba beating Chapecoense down in Brazil. Telstar just beat NEC, who's in Europe, and GA Eagles. Go ahead, Eagles. There wasn't very many big cup sets in the EFL Cup, from what I've known. Maybe Sheffield Wednesday beating Bolton. The German Bundesliga had some pretty wild games. A 6-1 win for Eintracht Braunschweig. That was pretty interesting. But yeah, and of course my local club did play last night. 1-1 draw against San Antonio FC. Yeah, that was not fun. So, in terms of today's matches, not really too much going on here for us. In Japan, of course, the Japanese league. Nagasaki beat Kyoto, and Tokyo Verdy and Kawasaki drew. Waterford are beating Bohemian FC in Ireland. That's going on right now. The Danish Super League, Rangers beat Lyngby. So yeah, that's basically some of the stuff going on today, of course. How is he? However, he was also one of the reasons why we Piranhas would. Yes, that is true. Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt was absolutely one of the reasons when he went down to South America, of course, during his time exploring South America. He had an expedition down South America, and he wanted to find the headwaters of the river Duarte. And of course, he actually was the one who, yes, he actually did. But still, like I said, very interesting, man. Lots of rich stuff about it. But yeah, piranhas are not actually exactly. Piranhas only do that when there's very little food. About them ripping people apart, they only do it. They only attack people when they're in stress situations, such as dense groups, and when the water's low and food is scarce. That's why they mainly, that kind of ravenous. Was because there have been people who attacked, but the piranhas only do it when they're very stressed. Exactly, Typhon. Mostly, piranhas are actually not that dangerous to people. Um, they can be extremely dangerous, but again, attacks only happen because of those situations. Normally, yeah. So pretty interesting stuff, Typhon. Starting for we just defeated a cow. Yeah, that was probably a reason for what they attacked the cow. Yep, that's true. But still, like I said, very interesting to learn about here today. But yeah, in reality, though, piranha teeth were used by the natives for tools, like either tools itself for carving wood or cutting hair, or sharpening darts, and it's used by a lot of tribes. They're also popular as food. They're popular food fish by both citizens catch by fishers and market. And apparently, some areas you can buy these as pets. Which, yeah, piranha's a pet. A pet piranha. And also, Typhon, they don't mainly eat just meat. They are actually omnivorous. They can eat fruits, leaves, insects, and, and, and mollusk. So they can eat quite a variety of foods. So they don't have to be just given a meat. So a lot of people may not even realize. And it's primary forager. So pretty cool stuff about Roosevelt. So we're gonna get to some really interesting areas. Like I've never been in this part of North Dakota yet. But yeah, very excited to check out Teddy Roosevelt National Park. So in terms of the streams next week, of course, it will be my last week before I head out on vacation. Our next game day flight, by the way, which will be next Friday, and it's the last one before we're gone. We're going to be back to being with Major League Baseball, even though it is the start of many European team seasons. We're actually going to be covering a baseball match on August 14th. We have, of course, the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs, the classic baseball rivalry of the National League Central, one of the most historic rivalries in baseball. I wanted to cover that game, of course. There wasn't any exciting soccer football matches, so this was obviously going to be the one to do it. So that's going to be next Friday. And then the one we're coming back, we're heading to Ireland. Shamrock Rovers, Bohemian FC in Ireland. Looking forward to that one. Get to fly over Ireland again. Haven't done that in a bit. And of course, the next national park after this one is Park 40, and that, of course, is Channel Islands National Park in California. We get to go do some bit of flying in this area. for that one will be a bit interesting, but I believe will mainly be. But I think we'll be mainly doing the Savage Norton for that one, because we'll be mainly landing on the beaches and stuff. But I'd be very excited to check out Channel Islands National Park with you guys. I'm looking forward to that one, of course. But we'll be flying from Long Beach, fly over all the Channel Islands to make our way over to Oxnard. I'm looking forward to doing that with you guys. Hey, Ian Fisher, good to see you, my dude. Here's a shout out for you. I hope you're doing well. Check out Ian Fisher's channel on Twitch. He does a lot of flights and stuff in his channel. He flies a lot of historical aircraft on his streams. So if you like that sort of stuff, check out Ian Fisher. Really good guy. A good friend of mine in the community. So here's a bit of more slides and information. So the climate and geography of Teddy Roosevelt National Park, or Theodore Roosevelt National Park. The North Unit, South Unit, and Elkhorn cover an area of around 70,000 acres of land. The largest unit is the Southern Unit, which is located near Medora. And the Northern situated unit is situated 80 miles north of the South Unit on US Route 85. And Elkhorn Ranch is between north and south. According to the Köppen climate classification system, Theodore Roosevelt National Park has a closed, semi-arid climate. So, for example, during the summer times, during the northern unit, the max daily temperature can go up to 85 degrees. But in the winter, it can go down as low. The daily minimum can go as low as 4 degrees Fahrenheit. It can get quite cold during the winter time. So it has pretty cold winters. Even the summer is 85. The max can go up to 85 degrees, which is pretty cold, actually. So yes, in the winter this place can get cold, but in the summer it's actually not too bad. Of course, the larger unit is the North Unit. So we'll be going through all that. Really neat area and a very cool park for this too. So pretty neat stuff going forward too. So of course we're going to be mainly exploring this entire area. Of course, Teddy Roosevelt National Park. Let's see how many more slides. 1, 2, 3, 4. So one of the more interesting things, and finally, I'm going to go one more slide. My last slide for this leg, of course, is the ecology of Theodore Roosevelt National Park. This is my last slide for this leg. So in terms of ecology, Teddy Roosevelt has two different types of park vegetation types. A wheatgrass, neograss vegetation type with a north mixedgrass prairie, and a northern floodplain vegetation type with floodplain forest. The park is home to a wide variety of Great Plains wildlife: bison, coyotes, cougars, Mustang horses, which, by the way, those Mustang horses were actually descended from the ones brought to the Americas by Spanish conquistadors. Badgers, elk, bighorn sheep, white-tailed deer, mule deer, pronghorn, prairie dogs, and at least 186 different bird species: golden eagles, sharp-tailed grouse, and wild turkeys, to name the few. And there's even 9 longhorn cattle that roam the northern half of the park as well. Now, the bison, elk, and bighorns were actually reintroduced into the park, and the park officials managed the population of bison, horses, elk to maintain a balanced ecosystem. And the park has been surrounded with a 7-foot-tall woven wire fence to keep horses and bison in the park and commercial livestock out. Elk mainly seek refuge here from external hunting pressure. The elk reproduce and have been removed to mitigate resource damage from overpopulation. The The prairie dogs are actually native wildlife. They're an important keystone species in the park. That's because prairie dogs, other foraging and burrowing behaviors that mix soils and promote native plant diversity, critical to the healthy landscape. After the park was fenced, a horse roundup was held in 1954 that removed 200 branded animals. A small few brands eluded capture and went unclaimed, and these horses continue to live free range of the park. And for several years, the park officials had tried to remove all the horses. However, in 1970, they changed the park policy to make it as part of the historical setting. So yes, there is a bit of horses here in the park. 29 bison were also introduced into the South Unit in 1956, and transferred 20 bison to the North Unit just 4 years later, just 6 years later. And they mainly cut down to around 350 and 20 animals respectively. As well, and it's been an ongoing diverse effort to bring bison back from the brink of extinction. So they also brought back a lot of the bison species here in the park. In the animal picture you see here is the pronghorn, which, fun fact, they're not related to antelope, but rather to the giraffe, which is crazy, but it's true. Pronghorn are related more to giraffes than anything else, and they mainly came around to their movement was meant to adapt to cheetahs because they had to evolve to escape the American cheetah. But nowadays, that speed may not be as useful anymore. I mean, basically, not very many people can catch them. So. So, pretty interesting stuff about the animals, of course. So, this will be my last slide of the lake. So, yeah, if you look to your right, we can see Lake Sacagawea. Which was actually a large reservoir by the Garrison Dam. That was constructed in the 50s, of course. It's actually the largest man-made lake entirely within the state of North Dakota, and unbelievably, it's the second largest reservoir in the United States by area after Lake Oahe in central South Dakota, and the third largest in volume, trailing Lake Mead and Lake Powell. So yeah, it's a very big reservoir. So pretty big. It's 178 miles long and very popular for fishing, camping, boating, and hiking, and water-based recreation. So that's basically what's going on here today. So we're getting to go a bit closer, as you can tell. So we're just about, let's see how far we are from our first stop. We're just about 20 nautical miles away from our first stop. So So we're doing pretty good, guys. In terms of other flights and content, of course, this week, Murphy's going to be back on tomorrow, of course. The last part of his prop job series. I see someone's flying along with me. I need to see the. Oh, Copper Stick, there you are, my dude. Good to see you. Welcome on in, Copper Stick. I hope you're having a good morning yourself. But he did the last prop job. Lukla and Paro. Should be interesting to see how Murph can land safely in those two airports. So he's got that to do today, of course. I know Allison's going to be back on Tuesday. She's going to be back with our antics and airliner stuff. When she's going to be doing stuff. But should be interesting to see what's going with her on her channel. So very interested to check these things out. So yeah, there's the lake, and in the distance we should see some of the Badlands actually get to form here. Yeah. So really, really cool stuff. So looking forward to exploring all this with you guys, of course, through the course. Can you guys believe it? We're actually nearly hitting 40. We'll be hitting 40 next week. That means we only got 24 national parks left, with not counting the Redux. From there, it would be significantly shorter. So we'll. So we'll be heading our way down to our first stop very shortly. So I wanted to ask you guys something important. So we have some pretty important stuff about the park. So I'll give you some information about North Dakota, since if you guys may not been aware of the U.S. series. I have it here on my YouTube, my other my VOD channel. Basically, North Dakota is it's the 3940th state, depending on what you believe who goes first. It's part of the Dakota Territory. Population is only a very small 799,358 people, which is 47th in the state. It's the third least populous U.S. state. It's the fourth least populous and least densely populated U.S. state. The biggest city is Fargo, of course. Now, economically speaking, agriculture is the largest industry here in the state. Sunflowers are one of the biggest part of North Dakota. So petroleum, food processing, and technology are now major industries here in the state. Originally was fur trading, but nowadays it's mainly with wheat, as it grows the most. A large producer of barley, durum wheat, hard spring wheat, oats, and combined wheats, as well as being the top producer for buckwheat. Lead producer in oil seeds, sunflower seeds, and mustard seeds. As well as sugar beets and stuff too. So lots of agriculture. And it is considered to be the least visited state. However, tourism is actually the state's third largest industry, despite not having a lot of people visiting the area. But it's good for outdoors. And Teddy Roosevelt National Park. But yeah, neat place though. So North Dakota is a bit underrated because not a lot of people get to actually know North Dakota. But that's what makes it kind of been underrated for that reason. So pretty neat stuff. Of course, I've been. So basically, Frederick's Reign's coming up very, very shortly. So we're now finally into the Badlands of the national park. There's also Little Missouri State Park we'll be flying over very soon. But we'll be entering into the north unit of the park very soon. So we'll be entering the north units. Theodore Roosevelt National Park. So we'll be getting there very shortly. So. Just stretching a bit. Now stretch. So after this stream, of course, I'll be doing the DC3 Cross Country Achievement that I created myself with the Firefly Air. Here's a Firefly page. Oh yeah, here we go. And we landed. We landed our first stop of the day. Pretty easy landing, not very difficult, obviously. So we. So. So we're going to go ahead and get ready for the last leg. So we're going to go ahead and head off to the national park. So I'm going to go ahead and show. We're just going to go here, delete the flight plan. Okay, map. And our heading is going to be 270 degrees. So we're going to do this. And we're going to keep the 3,500 feet. So we're going to go ahead and take off. So here we are, guys. We're now heading to Theodore Roosevelt National Park, and there's Lake Sacagawea. That's a really cool sight of the lake, of the reservoir. I mean, yeah, really cool sight. And now we're finally entered into this area's famous Badlands. So we're going to visit the north unit of the park. We'll be flying over Little Missouri State Park. So here, guys, we're going to be going to 3,500, and now we're entering this area's famous Badlands. This looks really cool. So let's go ahead and cover some of the other slides we're going to be covering here today. Let's go ahead and cover the last slides for this leg. Let's start with the wilderness of this national park. Now, the wilderness of this park is pretty big. Created by an act of Congress, the wilderness covers an area of 29,920 acres of land. It comprises over a third of the area of the entire national park, and there are two separated sections of wilderness. One of the two main units of the park, the northern section, which covers most of the northern unit, and the smaller southern section covers the western portion of the larger south unit. The wilderness protects from development. The wild sections of the national park area described as badlands or erosional forests or carved steep cliffs. And animals like bison, pronghorn, elk, mule deer, and coyote, as well as bird species, live in this wilderness. 85 miles of trails access the most remote locations of the wilderness. Camping is allowed with a permit. However, gathering wood for fires is prohibited, and overnighters are encouraged to bring a portable stove. Now, of course, with all U.S. wilderness areas, there's no motorized or mechanized vehicles, including bicycles. Although camping and fishing are usually allowed with the proper permits, no roads or buildings are constructed, and there's no logging and mining. So, pretty neat stuff with the wilderness, and you got to see some of the badlands in the pictures. So you can see some of the badlands here. Really neat area, of course. And then our attractions at the park. So, the attractions here, both the main units of the park have scenic drives, which are approximately 100 miles of foot and horse trails, wildlife viewing, and opportunities for backcountry hiking and camping. There are 3 developed campgrounds: Juniper Campground in the northern unit, Cottonwood Campground in the south, and the Roundup Group Horse Campground in the south unit. Wildlife viewing is popular. The brown dormant grass down into late summer through the winter, but explodes into green during the early summer, along with hundreds of species of flowering plants. During winter, snow covers a sharp terrain and interlocks the park to what Theodore Roosevelt called an abode of iron desolation. A museum in the South Unit Visitor Center also checks out his ranching days, and of course, you can visit his famous Maltese Cross cabin. His Elkhorn Ranch, the remote area of the park, is very well known for gravel roads. And the foundation of the ranch house and other shop buildings have been preserved, though other portions of the cabin were removed or repurposed after Roosevelt vacated the ranch. And of course, you can visit the town of Medora at the entrance in the south, providing a Western experience with planked sidewalks, old-fashioned ice cream parlors, and buggy rides. But yeah, pretty cool areas, of course, here in the park. Well worth visiting, of course. We'll see the Elkhorn unit slide once we head towards Elkhorn Ranch unit. We'll talk about his Elkhorn Ranch himself. So, very cool stuff to learn about. So we have Captain Stick flying with us. If anyone else wants to fly along, we're in the Southeast Asian server. Here's our route. Our closest airport, by the way, is not Yankee 1 or Sierra 25 are probably our 2 closest airports to where we're at. You can meet up with me from those 2 directions. So, pretty cool stuff. There's also a lot of really cool hiking trails that can take you up through the rocky hills and stuff. Some really beautiful badlands in this area. But we'll get to some really scenic areas here. And they said this area has been updated with the New World update. But this is, like I said, really beautiful. This scenery looks absolutely incredible. Just look at this place. This was like the type of area that Teddy Roosevelt did a lot of his hunting in. He hunted mainly in those areas. Really, really cool. So yeah, look at some of the live matches though. Hearts beating Dundee United Scotland. The EFL Cup, Mansfield United are down. Mansfield are down 1-0 to Sheffield United in the EFL Cup in England. Holy heck! Bohemian FC is getting crushed by Waterford 3-0. So we'll be continuing on there, but look at the scenery here. Just absolutely incredible scenery here in the Badlands. So, yeah, this is the Badlands, and this is the Little Missouri River, which basically the Little Missouri River basically goes through. It's about 580 nautical miles long, and the Little Missouri River goes through much of the Badlands here in North Dakota. It runs in south northeast Utah, Wyoming, and it goes all the way into the Lake Sacagawea. And yes, this river flows through all of Teddy Roosevelt National Park, so we'll get to see the river fully. So here we go, guys. We're pretty close to entering the National Parks North unit. So, hey, Zach O'Brien. Yo, first time chat. I hope you're doing well, Zach O'Brien. Welcome on in. I hope you're all having a good day here yourself. We're doing our National Park series. We're going to be visiting Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. Really interesting national park. It's the only one named after a person. In that case, being one of the American presidents, the 26th president, Theodore Roosevelt. So we'll be flying over the Oxbow Overlook. You can see some of the beautiful canyon. Now we're finally entered into the national park, so we'll finally be entering this area, of course. But let's look at the scene right here, guys. Let's take a look at the drone cam. So we have Copper Stick still with us. We have look at these Badlands. This is just incredible. Imagine living in this area back then when Teddy Roosevelt visited the area. He was absolutely blown away by this area, and I could definitely see why Teddy Roosevelt thought that way too. So, pretty important stuff here about this park. So this is the north unit of the park we'll be flying over. So here's the website, of course, for the information about the park. I'm going to post this here. I'll pin this for you guys to take a look at. I'll be doing after 5 minutes. There. But yeah, I pinned it for you guys. If you guys want to take a look at the park website gets you tons of information as well, like the places to go and visit. So we're in the north unit, which is a bit more off the beaten path, but the solitude in this area is well worth the drive. Tons of hiking, nature trails, and all that. Especially the backcountry and all that. So we're in the beautiful areas though. So this was also updated in the national park update too. So really curious to be my first time checking out this park. here it is, North. So here it is. Teddy Roosevelt National Park. We're finally here at the park. So very excited to check out this park. Look at this, just the space of grassland in this park. So we might do a landing at we might do a landing here at Oxbow Overlook. So that will be the first of the two of the three lands today. We'll land one there. We'll land at Elkhorn Ranch, and then we'll do a landing at and then we'll do a landing at Badlands Overlook. So we'll look at these three different places, and we'll do some landings, of course. But I think it'd be really cool to explore the park in different ways. Be looking forward to you guys, but just the scenery just looks awesome. It's gorgeous. Yeah, this place is just really, really cool. For miles, of course. So, very, very cool place. Get to check out all this grasslands. This is just too cool. We'll take a picture like this. You can see the grassland down below. Very, very neat. Like I said, this is sort of stuff why I wanted to do the series in the first place. Not just going to the famous big parks, but some of the smaller ones. Because I like this one, which I really enjoyed. The grasslands look absolutely incredible. I mean, the people who don't get to visit this part of North Dakota are really missing out. They think, oh, North Dakota is all just flat, just corn and fields. They don't. Then you get to this place and it's very, very different than what they could have imagined North Dakota becoming. Mm. So Oxbow Overlook is going to be to our left. We're going to turn off our autopilot. And we're going to make our landing here. So there's the Overlook. It is to our left. It's that little piece of road. So you guys can actually see what this area looks like from above elevation. Uh, Now, yes, the North unit is the least visited, but the backcountry stuff, and again, at the top of it, is definitely well worth it. So we'll park right here. So we'll just park right here. And we'll turn this off. Look at this, guys. Oxbow Overlook. Look at that for a screenshot. My goodness gracious. That's a cool screenshot. Where'd you guys think about this sort of scenery up here in the Badlands? Look at this place. Super cool. Always cool to get a screenshot like that. Oh, super cool. Just to fly around the Badlands like this is just too cool. Super, super neat. Right, I hope you guys enjoyed this view just as much as I am. This is very, very cool. Not a lot of people get to. Yeah, so many people don't get to go see this park too much. Oh, really, really cool. So, from there we'll. So we'll fly this direction for next 4 miles. So we're gonna catch back up here in North Dakota. But yeah, the scenery is just really nice. They did a great job in this area. Teddy Roosevelt National Park is absolutely stunning. I cannot wait to explore the rest of this beautiful park. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to fall down this road for a bit longer. Then after we get to the waypoint 5, we'll talk about Elkhorn Ranch. This is where Teddy Roosevelt stayed. This will be our last slide of the day. But we'll talk a bit about Teddy Roosevelt's famous Elkhorn Ranch. Once we get past this waypoint, we'll start talking about it. and this will be where we do the second of our bush landings at Elkhorn Ranch. We'll land right near the river course, and we'll talk about his famous Elkhorn Ranch. But yeah, absolutely cool to visit this area. So, let's go ahead and talk about Elkhorn Ranch for a bit. This is the last slide. This was Teddy Roosevelt's. This was a ranch established by Teddy Roosevelt on the bank of the Little Missouri River, 35 miles north of Medora, North Dakota, in summer of 1884. This was actually Teddy's main ranch, a preferred ranch house because it was larger, more private than his Maltese Cross ranch cabin from a year earlier. He particularly enjoyed the sit in the verdana and the rocking chair, reading under the shade of the cottonwood trees. His enjoyment is evidenced in all three of his books. In 1886, these stole his boat from Elkhorn Ranch. Soto hastily built a raft, and all three sit down river to catch the thieves. And when they did, Roosevelt kept watch of them with a shotgun and marched them overland to Dickinson, North Dakota for a $50 reward, which was a lot back in the old days. However, he quit the ranch in 1887 after losing 60% of his stock in the starvation of winter, and returned only a handful of times to the Badlands after that. And he kept a small share of cattle until 1898 at the onset of the Spanish-American War. Now, his right desk from Elkhorn Ranch is on display on the National Park. The park itself, ranch site, is protected as a unit of Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Of course, nowadays, the Elkhorn Ranch unit, nowadays, the only thing left nowadays from from Elkhorn Ranch, nowadays, is the foundation of the ranch house, and our shop buildings have been preserved, though other portions have been removed and repurposed after Roosevelt vacated the ranch. So there's not too much left, but we will be checking out this place when we get there. Of course, this is Elkhorn Ranch. So this is our last slide for the day. So thank you all for getting along with that. So we'll make a quick pit stop at Elkhorn Ranch. But we're going to mainly land near the shore of the Blue Missouri. So we'll land around this area and taking the sides of the Badlands, as Teddy Roosevelt would have been there all those years ago. And after that, though, of course, we'll be exploring Medora, check out the town, explore the area around the southern unit, the more popular unit of the park. And we'll explore all that area, and then we'll make our way to the last bush strip, which is a little airstrip. But I thought that would be a nice way to end, is a scenic little bush strip. I think that would be a really neat place to end. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This has been a lot of fun. And like I said, this is a national park a lot of people kind of overlook and miss. Because, of course, it's not as accessible. It's one of the least accessible of the 48 states to get national parks to get to. I mean, it's in North Dakota. The closest city to here is Rapid City, South Dakota. No, really. After all, it's a long ways from Minneapolis. It's a long way, or like Bozeman, that's a long way from there. So the one closest to the United States to get there is Rapid City. It's the closest national park to get there. Unless you want to drive from Canada, I guess the city of Regina. Regina. So here we go. And now we're in the Little Banks of the Little Missouri. This is super cool. This park is definitely pretty cool. So, Elkhart Ranch Unit. But yeah, you can take the trail and explore the area, of course. Yeah, this is a very well-known hiking park. No, not as much as like some of the other ones, but there's plenty of backcountry hiking, though, is really what this place shines. But of course, most people visit the southern unit. There's actually quite a bit of things to do in Medora. So yeah, really, really cool place. But yeah, there's also Medora too, which will be the place we'll talk about after we visit. I got the website for you guys as well to learn more about Medora, North Dakota. Once we got our landing here, so Elkhorn Ranch, we'll probably land near the shores of the. We'll land right in this area, not far from there. We get to see how things with Teddy Roosevelt would have been back then, the old days, with Mr. Roosevelt. But like I said, one of the more unique parks, for sure. And of course, Teddy Roosevelt, the teddy bear actually is one interesting thing. And guys, if you don't know how the teddy bear came around, um, how the teddy bear came around, well, that was because it was named after by Morris Milcom after Theodore Roosevelt. The story of how the teddy bear actually came around was during a bear hunt. Actually, Teddy Roosevelt himself, Teddy, was actually nicknamed. He loathed the nickname Teddy Roosevelt. But apparently, in 1902, during a bear hunting trip in Missouri, he was invited by the governor of Mississippi, including Rio Percy, and apparently most of them had already killed one of the bears and cornered, clubbed, and tied an American black tree to a willow tree after a chase with hounds. And Roosevelt suggested to shoot the bear dead. However, Roosevelt refused to shoot the bear himself as he deemed this out of unsportsmanlike, and instructed to be put out of his own misery as a result. And he was inspired to create the teddy bear as a result by Moore's Mictom's salty Bearman drawing, and inspired Teddy's bear, and eventually becomes um, its own toy and stuff. And you know how it got its name. It was because of Teddy Roosevelt, of course. Get stories that people may not know nowadays. Too. So, here we go. We're going to be making the landing here pretty shortly. Here we go, guys. We're going to go ahead and prepare for the landing at Elkhorn Ranch. So this is where Teddy Roosevelt put his ranch back in the 1800s. So it was right in this area. We'll land right where I think he put the ranch back then. And I think the I put third person try to make it easier to see. So this is right around where the ranch was built. Based on the old footage and all that, this is where his ranch was from. So we'll park here, and so this here is where this was where the ranch was at. I can definitely see why he wanted to put a ranch here. So it's an absolutely gorgeous area. So it's a beautiful area here. So this is where the Elkhorn Ranch area was at. This is where Teddy Roosevelt put his ranch for a couple of years. He unfortunately had to leave due to the stockpile running out. But many of the foundations and stuff and the buildings were still preserved here. So this is his famous Elkhorn Ranch. Really cool stuff, guys. And yet, the plains of the Badlands just makes this really stunning. I wonder if it's better looking than the one in South Dakota, though. I actually think it might just be a more stunning park than the one in South Dakota. And we're off. So, but now we have one. Now we're going to enter into the city of Medora, South Dakota. So Medora, South Dakota is not on my. He was not on my slide list, but Medora, South Dakota, is the main community here that ties to the national park. It's the main gateway to the park is Medora. Population's actually just 160 people, which is very small. It's home to the most popular unit of the park, the South Unit, and it features a couple of other things, including Rough Rider State Park and the seasonal Medora musical at the Burning Hills Amphitheater. It was originally founded in 1883 as a transcontinental rail line of the Northern Pacific Railway by French nobleman Marquis de Morse and named it after his wife, Medora von Hoffman. But of course, Teddy Roosevelt visited this area and he He visited during his tour of the western U.S., and most of the island residents turned to greet him on his whistle stop from their old fans. Um, and of course, Medora is home to the popular Medora. It's one of the most popular tourist attractions in all of North Dakota nowadays. Some of the points of interest include the musical, the national park. There's also a well-known 144-mile trail. The Chateau de Moors, where Marquis de Moors actually lived as a hunting lodge and summer home. And the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. But it's not one of the 16 official presidential libraries. It's a non-ARA museum. But pretty cool stuff. Pretty neat little town. The website here, they got all sorts of little stuff, all the things to do and all that. But neat little park. And by the way, this new library was actually completed this year on July 4th, 2026, a new presidential library for the life and legacy of Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. It's got all sorts of features about presidential library here at Teddy Roosevelt. Plenty of stuff about its history, of course. So we're going to go ahead and so beautiful stuff, though. The area is just absolutely stunning. What a stunning area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. So yeah, we done both of our lanes here today. So that's our 2 landings for today. We'll just explore the rest of the area. Head our way now to explore the rest of the place. So really cool stuff. But man, what an absolutely stunning park. Yeah, what an absolutely stunning park. Just absolutely gorgeous. I love this park. Such an underrated little national park here in North Dakota. absolutely just beautiful. Like, no wonder Roosevelt wanted to stay in this area. I completely get it now. So, we're just about 40 nautical miles away from our final stop here. We're just under 37 nautical miles away from our final stop. Yeah, these Badlands are just something else here. So we're going to be visiting Medora. Now, he used to live in the Maltese Cross cabin. Now, he used to be at the Maltese Cross. The Maltese Cross cabin in Medora was actually his first cabin in the Dakota Territory, and it was actually where he stayed after his wife and mother died hours apart in 1884. And he left the cabin and went further down into the Little Missouri River. But of course, the Cross cabin is still here to this day. It's still preserved and by the National Park Service. And you can still take guided tours of the cabin. Tours of the cabin are mainly held between mid-June Labor Day. The rest of the year is self-guided. But you can still take the tour of the cabin, which is definitely well worth it. I don't think it's in the park. I don't think it's modeled in the sim, but the Maltese Cross cabin is definitely a very cool park. Yeah, what a really cool area in the sim. This is really neat. Just, I mean, look at the Badlands just carved by the river. Isn't that just something, guys? Hey, Court, good to see you. We're in Theodore Roosevelt National Park, in North Dakota. Very, very cool park, here in North Dakota. Really, really surprising about the park itself. So we're about to fly over into the town of Medora, and check out the little town area, of course. So we're just about 32 nautical miles away from our final stop. So this is skyline view, so you can see the skyline. And now we're going to enter into the town of Medora. Very neat little town, of course. Yeah, look at this area. That's just striking. So here it is, guys, Medora. Not far from the area is the Schultz. There's the there is the Maltese Cross cabin. Down below here is the famous cabin. So here's his famous Maltese Cross cabin, and here is the town itself. Yeah, beautiful town though. I mean, look at the scenery. It's just crazy. I need to get back to the airplane. For Badlands Overlook, I might land there. If you guys don't mind, we could do one more bush landing today. And we can land at Badlands Overlook. If you don't mind. Yeah, this is such a cool national park. Oh, nice! Watching the grid, power just came back on. Oh, that's good news, Court. That's nice. Great news. Good to hear. Yeah, this place is just neat. So many trails. Like, I almost think this was better looking than the one in South Dakota. I actually think it is. Like, the South Dakota Badlands are cool, but this looks even better, honestly. Even if it is a bit more remote and harder to get there, I think this is still better. Yeah, just absolutely crazy. I'm going to go ahead and turn off our autopilot and get ready for the landing. So we might land here. Right here. Here's our stuff. Not my smoothest landing, but here we go. Here. Huh, there it is. That's the Badlands Overlook. My goodness. That does not get old at all. Just incredible view. All these Badlands. This is just something else. So, just something else. What a view for everyone here. Definitely look at this. This is the state of what, like, this is the real North Dakota right here, guys. Not like just agriculture, but Badlands, prairies, all sorts of stuff. Can you imagine with bison and all that roaming around? Just absolutely incredible, guys. Love it, love it. So let's go ahead and take off from the national park. We're going this way. So, yeah, absolutely incredible, guys. This was absolutely stunning. Beautiful park, guys. I mean, blown away by how beautiful this thing is. I think this was better than the last Badlands National Park we visited in South Dakota. I actually think this is much better. I mean, the river and all that, it's so green. It's just beautiful contrast with the green. So this is Painted Canyon. All this stuff to our right is the Painted Canyon of Teddy Roosevelt National Park. So this is the Painted Canyon area. Absolutely cool. So there you go. And that wraps up Teddy Roosevelt National Park. Got 10 files at a time. Alright, gotta turn this way. So that's it, everyone. That completes Teddy Roosevelt National Park. Here we go, guys. Now we're going to fly this way to our last stop, and we'll fly for some more of the Dakota Prairie grasslands here. This collection of grasslands here in North Dakota, mainly there's a couple different kinds of grasslands: Cedar River, Little Missouri, and Cheyenne grasslands. And South Dakota's Grand River National Grassland. These grasslands have over 1.26 million acres of land and established back in 1998. So I hope you guys enjoyed this trip. This was absolutely stunning, of course. So we'll be going to this area once more. But yeah, you can see more of these Badland type areas down further south, of course. So we'll make our landing very, very soon. And one final bush trip. Oh, absolutely incredible. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend, and I hope you guys have a great week coming up. So, yeah, absolutely gorgeous day today. And I want to thank Copper Stick for flying along with me, too. Massive thanks, Copper Stick, for joining with me today. Absolutely gorgeous grassland scenery. I know next week's national park is going to be a bit different, as we're going to trade the grasslands and the badlands and grass plains for islands in the ocean. Channel Islands, to be in fact. So, looking forward to that one with you guys, of course. Stretch, 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 stretch. So, really, really enjoyable stuff again. The scenery's just been absolutely fantastic today. Well, here the airport is the bush trip's right down by the bank of the river, so we should be getting very, very close. So it's down for this area right here. We'll be sticking around for the final landing of the day. Beautiful landing site. Really enjoyable trip. here we go. Landing's going to be very, very short. Yeah, look at this, right next to the bank. This is a really cool land site here, right on the riverbank. Maybe this is why I picked the good land site for the final trip, right on the bank of the river, on the riverbank. There we go, guys. And that's it. We'll just turn everything off. And that wraps up everything here, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this trip of the National Park Theodore Roosevelt. We're going to go ahead and find a raid. We'll be back on Friday. So we're going to raid Murphy, of course. Murphy's on, apparently, so we're going to raid Two-Tone Murphy. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll be seeing you guys on Friday. So I hope to see you all again soon. Take care and have a great rest of your week. Goodbye, everyone, and see you all very soon.